Krishna Hare. Krishna Hare.
His Holiness Devamrit Swami is an internationally known leader of the Krishna consciousness movement. His base is in what's it called? Oh yeah, New Zealand. In New Zealand, but he travels all over the world. He has responsibilities all over America and Europe and even Africa and so forth. He's been a member of the Krishna consciousness movement since the early 70s and has led the field in book distribution and the development of projects helping devotees to come to Krishna consciousness. And he's a great scholar and a world teacher. So we're very happy to have His Holiness Devamrit Swami here, back here at ISV. So even though everyone isn't here yet, please make up for it by giving him an extra enthusiastic welcome to ISV.
It's always a pleasure to come here because there's so much energy from the Panchatattva radiating from this place, and that radiated energy is felt all over the world. I haven't been here for 2 years due to my misfortune, but coming here again is quite rejuvenating. Jayarad Hamadva Kunja Bihari Jayarad Madhva Kunja Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Giridharidhari Gopi Janaballabha Giridharidhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Giridharidhari Gopi Janaballabha Giridharidhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Om Shivam Sabadaraja Kachaya Stote Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Mirage Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Shivam Sabadaraja Kachaya Stote Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Go Premanandi. Hare. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. At this very dynamic chakra of Krishna's mercy, especially as that mercy comes through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have an interesting topic to discuss with you tonight. Whether one is young or whether one is old, there is something that causes the conditioned soul to rotate in the cycle of repeated birth and death. And if you can capture that essence, then you've got your hands on the central dynamics of material existence. And indeed, both Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam will perfectly equip you so that you can actually get your hands on what's pushing your life. You might think, oh, my life is being pushed on by career motivation, family motivation, social motivation. But we can go deeper. And in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives you insight into how to actually deal with what is pushing you onward. In other words, it's not just whatever inputs your parents installed in you. It's not simply the conditioning that inevitably society invests in you. It's not simply your hormones. We have to look at what Krishna describes in the 59th verse of the second chapter of the Gita as the taste for sense objects. This concerns anyone in a material body, whether you're young or whether you're old. Those of you who are older adults may think, oh, the taste of sense objects, that is something for the young persons. But no, the taste for sense objects is what preoccupies everyone in material existence. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in a material body in the material world. Somehow or other, in whatever body you have, and no matter how old that body is, there's this pursuit of the rasa flavor, the taste that drives us onward. Those of you who have read Nectar of Devotion know the ingenious introduction given by Srila Prabhupada about how we're pursuing flavor. Every activity has a certain rasa or flavor. And of course, the bhakti rasa is different. There is your hope that the bhakti rasa is constituted of a completely different makeup than material rasa. Otherwise, what is the use in practicing bhakti if you're tasting the exact same thing? Or maybe that bhakti rasa that you're tasting is simply more pious and more well-behaved. No, the bhakti rasa is completely different in makeup and origin. The bhakti rasa, the bhakti flavor, is originating from the spiritual world. When we are being driven forward in our life by the bhakti flavor, the bhakti rasa, our life is completely different. But when we are driven by the rasa, the flavor, for seeking gratification of our body and mind in this world, we get another result. Now, sometimes we start to figure this out, the mirage of material existence. And Krishna is talking about this in the 59th verse of the second chapter. Sometimes persons figure out that whatever gross or subtle goal or object you pursue in the material world is going to frustrate you. You're looking for happiness. You're looking for fulfillment. In that quest for happiness and fulfillment and satisfaction, you don't get it. You simply get the promise of it. If you can see how much of material existence, whether lived in a very refined, pious way, or lived in a very gross, passionate way, still, you've got some problems with the flavor in terms of quality and quantity. In terms of quantity, there's never enough to satisfy you. And in terms of quality, the flavor is not sufficient. Qualitatively, there's a problem. And as we already said, quantitatively, there's a problem. So you don't get satisfaction. You don't get happiness. You don't get any kind of satiation. This is why, in the third canto, in the beginning of Vidura's discussions with Maitreya, the first question that Vidura will ask Maitreya Rishi is about the happiness quest of the conditioned souls. He could have jumped right in. Vidura could have jumped right in and asked about Krishna's incarnations, Krishna's activities. but he wants to clear the field, so to speak, of the weeds of misunderstanding. So he's asking, what is it about material existence that drives the conditioned soul onward? So this is important for us to understand at all ages. So Vidura, in asking his question, points out, they don't get happiness, they don't get satisfaction, they don't get satiation, but guess what? They don't even get detachment. You would think, well, you engage in material existence, whether in a refined way or a disgusting way, and you realize, oh, this is just not where it's at. This is pointless or frustrating, or this is a lot of hard work. I'll back off. No, Vidura's point is you don't get detachment. Even though you're suffering, even though you're frustrated, you can't back off. This is a very sorry state, isn't it? So Vidura is feeling for the suffering of illusion-living entities. Usually when you do something that doesn't turn out the way you expected, when you do something that frustrates you, you develop some existential distance from whatever you were engaged in. Oh, this is just not working out. I think I've had enough of this. Material existence, although it won't satisfy you, won't give you that detachment. If you can grasp this, you can save yourself so much trouble and help others to save themselves from so much trouble. And of course, this chakra of Lord Chaitanya's mercy here is dedicated to enlightening others. Understanding the dynamics of material existence is very important for our spiritual life. I was explaining in Los Angeles a few days ago how Srila Prabhupada said there are two types of kirtan. Chanting Hare Krishna, speaking about Krishna's Leela, his qualities. But he said also, there's another kind of kirtan, describing, analyzing the mirage of material existence. He said, that is also kirtan. And he explained that without hearing that other type of kirtan, our devotees will be weak, they won't grow strong in bhakti, and eventually they'll go away. Because they haven't taken the whole Srimad Bhagavatam fully, which describes how the illusory energy works, how the internal potency works. So it's very important for us to be conversant with the nature of material existence, how it can look so promising, but never deliver the goods. It's like you go online and you order something, and you're full of expectations, and the package is never delivered. Or, if the package does come, the contents are defective. So that is the nature of going online in terms of engaging in material existence. The term is called promissory materialism. It's promised, the success is promised, the satisfaction is promised, but it never quite comes your way. But still, we don't give up the quest, because material existence does not grant you detachment. Therefore, again and again and again, we repeat the same lesson, but we never graduate. Year after year, you're repeating your classroom studies, but you never graduate. When we look at the 59th verse of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we see Krishna zeroing in the taste for sense objects. Now, what about if you try to restrict yourself from that taste, that material rasa? In a real human civilization, you do that. But Krishna is pointing out, though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. So here we see the superlative nature of the bhakti system. It goes beyond mere restraint of the senses. And you'll find that in so many cultures throughout the world, this fear is there, that if I restrict myself, in other words, if I'm smart enough to figure out that material endeavors are futile and I restrict myself, how can I be successful? Because I'll still have the appetite. Even though I'm artificially restrained, the appetite is still there. Just like from the legal system in the USA, you can get what's called a restraining order, restraining someone. But still, that person wants to do things, wants to be active, but at least for some time, the court has issued a restraining order. It doesn't solve the situation. The restraining order doesn't get to the root of the situation. You'll find that this issue about the taste, the rasa of material existence, how to cope with it, is there throughout Srimad Bhagavatam. When Daksha in the 6th canto was arguing with Narada Muni, he brought this point up. Narada Muni, you have taught my 11,000 sons about restraint and renunciation. I partially agree. That's why I sent my sons to perform austerities before they took up their family life, their material affairs. I understand that the basis of everything is tapasya, austerity. Therefore, I properly instructed my sons, perform austerities, and then come back and get into your material affairs. I did that. But you, Narada Muni, took things too far. You motivated them to not come back after they did their austerities. So you see how far beyond contemporary so-called civilization is Daksha. He accepted that for my sons to be good grihastas, first they should go off and perform austerities. He accepted that. But his argument with Narada Muni is about what happens after those preliminary austerities are performed. He's pointing out to Narada Muni, my sons should have been allowed to engage in karmic activity, fruitive activity, in a way that they could achieve the heavenly planets in the next life. But you, Narada Muni, have prematurely stopped their endeavors. Therefore, you are a sadhu. You're not a sadhu, you're the opposite. You dress like a sadhu, but you're just an imitation. In fact, you're a disgrace to all the sadhus. Because listen, you are known to be an associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You travel in that kind of crowd. But just look at the dishonor you're bringing to your entourage, the entourage of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's saying all these things because he's so angry. Daksha is powerful enough that he could have thousands of sons. The first batch was 10,000 sons. These days, many men have difficulty just having one son. But Daksha was able to have 10,000. And when Narada Muni preached to the first batch of 10,000 and motivated them to become sannyasis, Daksha let that pass. So he's got some good qualities, you know. Srila Prabhupada would sometimes describe what it was like for him in India in the 50s and early 60s. How, before he came to America, he tried to get his missionary activities going in India. And at that time, in the 50s and early 60s, there was still remembrance of the old ways, the traditions, that a man would have several sons, and the man would allow one son to become a sadhu, recognizing that this is good for the whole family. I've got 5 sons. Let one be trained as a brahmachari and become a sadhu. So Srila Prabhupada describes how, acting on the old ways, which don't exist anymore, he would go to these wealthy aristocratic families in India, which had many years of tradition, many generations, and he would say, please, he would say to the father, give me one son to assist me. I'll train him as a perfect sadhu. And the response, of course, was stonewall. I like the way Srila Prabhupada described the response. Swamiji, please don't touch him. He's meant for technology. Don't touch him. Daksha had 10,000 sons. He didn't protest the first time. He produced another 1,000 sons. This is not mythology. Just because we cannot do this, it doesn't mean it's mythology. The second batch of 1,000 were also taken by Narada Muni. So Daksha is presenting him that, look, I've got a right to be a bit agitated. I didn't say anything about the first 10,000. Now you've taken all 11,000. You have done a great injustice. First of all, they have debts to pay back. The acharyas explain that if you're born in a Brahmana family, you especially have 3 debts. You have debts to the demigods, the devas. You have debts to the rishis, the Vedic sages. And you have debts to your family line, your pitas, your ancestors. So you pay your debt to the pitas, the ancestors, by having sons. You pay your debt to the rishis by a period of life as a brahmachari. And you pay your debt to the devas, the demigods, by yagyas, rituals. So that's the standard way, especially for those born in Brahmana families. So Daksha is pointing out to Narada Muni that, look, my sons haven't paid their debts. Obviously, Daksha was not aware of the verse in Bhagavatam, Devarshi Bhutapta Ninam Patrinam. Yes, you all know that verse, right? It saves you from a lot of anxiety, doesn't it? Because otherwise, you would be drowning in an ocean of social obligations. I was talking to one devotee in India, Gauranga Prabhu of Govardhan Echo Village and Chaupati. So he was telling me his observations of the differences in the psychology between the East and the West, between India and the West. He said, from what I've seen in the West, the people, they don't care what others think. They don't care about obligations to others. It's all about me. He said, whereas in India, we're always looking around. What do they think of me? What do they want from me? What am I supposed to do? Looking around at others. How am I? Whereas in the Western world, couldn't care less. Just me and my senses. I don't have any obligations. parents. I don't owe anything to my parents. Their life is their life. My life is my life. So, this verse, Devarshi Bhutapta, Ninam Patrinam, when properly understood and applied, can save you from a lot of unnecessary anxiety. It acknowledges, yes, normally in human society, you have heaps of obligations. Just by your taking birth in a human body, you have so many debts to pay. To the demigods, to the rishis, to living entities in general, even animals, to human society, because human society is attempting to give you some kind of stable economic and political arrangements. Of course, in so much of the world today, you see so much upheaval, but still, in a fumbling, bumbling way, human society is trying to provide some kind of social arrangement, so that puts you in debt. And then your ancestors, Rinam Patrinam, human society, and then your forefathers, your ancestors. Yes, there are debts to pay, but if your life is focused on Krishna's service, you're free from those debts. So that verse is very liberating. But obviously, Daksha wasn't considering that verse. He accepted that, yes, there are obligations, and therefore my boys should be paying off those debts before they do anything else. And that will probably take most of their life. In other words, if they're going to be spiritually absorbed, let them do it at the last stage of life. The best years of your life should be for economic expansion. And the last years, when your body is broken down and your mind is feeble, oh, now I should serve Krishna. That was Daksha's understanding. Even today, you can hear that. The contemporary equivalent of telling your sons, your life is meant for technology. No. You should be spiritual, but right now is the time for the material. It's not understood that in bhakti, you can learn how to balance both. Krishna's not against that are materially caring for our situation. In fact, dharma shaglani, yada yada hi dharma shaglani bhavati bharata. Dharma shaglani specifically means a disturbance to the balance of material and spiritual affairs. Krishna knows. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about the material elements of a successful life. It's just that everything is bhakti-focused and bhakti-centered. So Daksha was harassing Narada Muni. You prevented my sons from paying off their debts. But then he got to something very deep. He started dealing with that material rasa. It exists, he told Narada Muni. And there's no doubt it's frustrating. In other words, Daksha accepted that material happiness is a sorry affair. It's going to lead to frustration. It's going to lead to disappointment. But, he told Narada Muni, they've got to go through it, and then they can renounce. So just see, he was far more advanced than ordinary human being today. He accepted that material happiness is an illusion. But he said, my boys have to go through it. Otherwise, how can they be fixed in eventual renunciation? So implicit in Daksha's statement is the concept that you learn by your going through material existence. But actually, Narada Muni knows that's not possible. He understands there is no educational department in Maya. The purpose of Maya is not to educate you, it's to blind you, bewilder you, so that you make the same mistake again and again and never figure out what's hitting you. That's why Maya is called the avidya potency, the nescience potency. You're blinded, you can't see. Or as Shukadeva Goswami explains in the second canto of Bhagavatam, pashyanapi na pashyati. You are sufficiently experienced. You've been through it all before, but you still don't see what's going on. Therefore, deha patra kalatra dishu atmasanyesu satsuapi. Tesham pramato nidanam pashyanapi na pashyati. Again and again, you surround yourself with your army. I've got my family. I've got my relatives. I've got my corporation. I've got my army. And you think that's going to protect you. You never see what the real problem is. So this concept that you're going to learn by experience, Narada Muni doesn't accept. He knows nescience doesn't teach you. So then how is it that we can ever hope as aspiring Vaishnavas, how can we ever hope to be detached from material existence? The detachment won't come strictly from experience. It'll come by getting the mercy of devotees. Just like Daksha's sons got the mercy of Narada Muni. But Daksha couldn't see that. He just thought, they're not experienced. Yes, material happiness is frustrating, but you got to go through it. As I often explain, you probably heard me explain before. Everyone knows the old saying, experience is the best teacher. You've heard that? Yeah. What do you think? It's true, huh? So you heard that mantra, huh? You've heard that mantra too? What do you think? It's true, yeah. Yeah, everyone's heard it, right? You might have even told your children that, those of you who are parents, right? You have forgotten the other half of the mantra. Just like you know that verse in another part of the second chapter of the Gita, Karmanyeva Dakadaste, often quoted in India, right? You must do your duty, right? But what else does the verse say? Yes, translation? You're not entitled to the fruits. But that part's forgotten. Simply, you must do your duty. So, similarly, that expression, experience is the best teacher, has another half. It's an old English saying from England. Experience is the best teacher because a fool will learn no other way. Just see how Kali Yuga progresses. The second half is totally forgotten. So this is the presentation of Daksha to Narada Muni, and Daksha is very angry. I agree material happiness is futile, but you've got to go through it, and then you'll be strong in renunciation. As if it's the experience of frustration that will keep you attached to devotional service, the internal potency. Whereas Narada Muni knows it's the association of devotees, it's the mercy of the devotees that allows you to walk away from the material energy. So this is why bhakti is a mystery to the casual onlooker. How do you not get the material flavor anymore? This taste for the sense objects, whether gross or refined. How do you drop that? And here Krishna agrees, you can't drop it just by restraint. There has to be a superior flavor that captivates you. This theme is repeated in so many places in Srimad Bhagavatam. You may try to restrain yourself through mystic yoga. You may try to curb yourself through metaphysical studies, jnana. You may even try to do it through karmic activity, good karma, punya, pious activities. None of those margs are sufficient for changing the nature of the rasa. So this is why the bhakti rasa knowledge is so important. You're totally transforming the flavor of your pursuit. The greatest intellects, the greatest minds, are those who can deal with this science of rasa. This is why Srimad Bhagavatam is in a class of its own. It's from the very beginning, it tells you it's imparting a different flavor. Therefore, it is proper for you to dedicate your whole life to it. In other words, the greatest intellects in existence are dealing with this subject matter. And what they're giving you is knowledge beyond mere restraint of the senses. You'll find so much paranoia in the world about this restraining, giving up, and then what are you going to taste? In India, although India's, as you know, so rapidly changing, the situation's a bit more disguised amongst the older generation. The quest for rasa flavor is buried underneath duty and obligation, a whole system of duty and obligation. That's changing very quickly, though. But in the Wild West, everything is right out in the open. It's all about you and the flavors you're tasting. And it is your obligation and duty only to taste the best flavors of material existence. It's your only obligation. It's the only duty you have. Don't worry about your parents. They're chasing that. Don't worry about your children. They will chase it. So you chase it, and that is your sacred obligation. How to deal with that flavor hunt? Whether east, west, north, or south, this is the bottom line. You may pursue it in an uncivilized way, or you may do it in a very cultured, karma kanda way, jnana marg way, yoga marg way. Still, ultimately, the bottom line is the same. So my point to you is that the greatest intellects in existence are dealing with this. That's what Bhagavatam is presenting to you. This week, I was especially reflecting on the change of body by someone who is hailed as one of the greatest minds in human history. Many of you know the departure of one celebrity scientist at the age of 76. And the news media was hailing him as having a most beautiful mind that roamed the cosmos. And he was hailed as one of the greatest physicists of our time. Some people would say the greatest physicist since Einstein. Others would say, oh, well, that's a bit of an exaggeration. Still, one of the greatest. So what is it like to hear the utterances, the statements from what we're told is a most beautiful mind, roaming the cosmos, solving the problems of existence? How does such a person's contribution, such a person's statements compare to Srimad Bhagavatam, where indeed you truly find the greatest intellects? Just to give you some idea of what you're dealing with in terms of the commotion of Kali Yuga, I decided to present to you a few quotations from this greatest mind that roamed the cosmos. Let's see if I... First of all, point blank. There is no God. I am an atheist. Then he offers a purport. First translation, then purport. I believe the simplest explanation, this most beautiful mind that roamed the cosmos, I believe the simplest explanation is there is no God. No one created the universe, and no one directs our fate. This leads me to a profound realization that there's probably no heaven and no afterlife either. We have this one life to appreciate the grand design of the universe. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. So this is considered very advanced thinking because you do appreciate the design of the universe. You have taken note of that. And you're in awe about it. And that's as much as you should expect from life. What's wrong with that? Why do you spiritual people downplay the sense of awe and reverence for the design of the universe? A design that, of course, comes from no designer. Why do you disparage, why do you downgrade a life that simply appreciates the awe of the cosmos and then ends? What's wrong with that? Why do you say that that's meaningless? Such persons object to your calling their life meaningless just because they don't accept that there's God, they don't accept that there's afterlife. That doesn't mean we can't find meaning. We find meaning in awe and grandeur of the universe. We leave it at that. We're not children who have to add some God or some soul into the situation. What else does he say? As to the possibility of an afterlife, he says, I regard the brain as a computer which will stop working when its components fail. There is no heaven or afterlife for broken down computers. Believing that is a fairy story for people afraid of the dark. Are you afraid of the dark? Yes, yes. So the idea is just like this little boy is afraid of the dark, similarly, adults, based on that similarly irrational fear, have invented the afterlife, have invented that there's a God, just because they're afraid. And that fear is so childish. So this is the most beautiful mind that roamed the cosmos. We'll give credit where credit's due, that yes, celebrity personalities like that have come up with some discoveries. But as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Adibhutam Sharobhav, this universe is endlessly mutable. You'll never get to the end of it all. You make some little discovery, and it seems so impressive, and then someone else overturns your discovery 100 years from now. In my book, Searching for Vedic India, I quote one very prominent physicist who made a very insightful statement. These days, it would be considered a bit gender disparaging in today's climate. But just remember, I didn't make up the statement. I'm just repeating the statement this person said. He said, never run after three things in your life. Never run after a bus, never run after a woman, and never run after a cosmological theory. Why? Because there's always another one coming. It's not my joke, no, please. I have to be careful these days. Always another one coming. So I thought that was a very honest admission. Then we look at the intellect in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is grappling with the most essential issues of existence. Bhagavatam is getting to the bottom of our whole situation. The quest for rasa, the quest for flavor, which can't be dealt with even if you try to restrain yourself. Just think about that. Just see how honest Krishna is. Krishna's exposing the whole setup. Even if you're smart enough to understand the futility of material endeavor and your quest for material flavor, even if you're smart enough to figure that out, you can't win by simply restraint, clamping down on yourself. It's only when you get a superior flavor to replace the inferior flavor that you become successful. So this is why we need our bhakti communities to impart to people that flavor and give them inspiration for letting go of the inferior flavor and tasting the superior flavor. Another problem that affects us, especially when there's some tragedy in our life or involving associates in our life, the unjust universe, a universe that seems to have so much evil in it. It's admitted quite readily that the circumstances for life in the universe are so improbable. It seems like the universe is fine-tuned for life. And if those scientific factors varied just the tiniest amount, life would be impossible. So even atheists concede that you might have grounds to think that there's some ultimate engineer or designer. Because how can these circumstances for life come about so perfectly? A popular explanation, which is a great religious belief, is that there are multi-universes. And in so many of these countless universes, the conditions for life are a failure. But we happen to be in the one universe in which the conditions are correct. So therefore, it can happen by chance. Because there's so many universes which are not right for life. But out of those countless universes that aren't right, there happens to be one in which, by chance, things worked out. So that's one argument given. Of course, there is no proof for the multiverses, as they're called. Our departed celebrity scientist, he often would put forth that explanation. Multiple universes. No need to accept that there's a God. But then there's another problem put forth, that yes, the material conditions for life are so fine-tuned and so perfect, but we know there's no God because there's evil in the world. In other words, you theists, just don't look at the fine-tuning of the cosmic situation. Look at the evil, the genocide, the insane behavior by human beings, the terrible catastrophes inflicted by nature. So why do you just go to one side and say the astrophysical conditions of the universe are just right for life? There must be a God. If you're going to do that, then look at the whole picture. Look at the evil. Look at the catastrophes. So how do we answer that? Without even having to explain that everyone in the universe gets their just desserts, their appropriate responses. You can point out the overriding factor, even beyond the equality of justice distributed by the laws of nature. Even beyond that, you can point out to Krishna's mercy. Krishna himself comes. He says in Bhagavad Gita, Utsideha ime loka nakoryam karma chetaham. If I don't come, indirectly people could accuse me. So I come to set things right. So Krishna appeared even to ordinary vision 5,000 years ago, and he said, surrender to me. He himself came and displayed his Leela and gave instruction in Bhagavad Gita. And still people are saying, there can't be any God. Look at how horrible the universe is in terms of evil. God has not done anything about it. But Krishna himself came. He spoke Bhagavad Gita. He displayed his divine Leela. And he said, surrender to me. How many surrendered? Very few surrendered. So then Krishna comes again as his own devotee, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And not only does he give Krishna freely to everyone, more than that, he gives love of Krishna. And still we say, how can there be a God? There's no mercy, there's no justice in this universe. And Mahaprabhu is giving love of Krishna away freely. So by your efforts here, you're actually allowing people to see the true meaning of the universe and existence in it. By your efforts here, you are allowing persons to see the divine purpose for creation. In your world-famous efforts to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books, you're acting on the inner purpose of the cosmos, what Krishna himself does, what Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself does. Krishna says, surrender to me. Lord Chaitanya says, wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach the science of Krishna. It's exactly the same thing. By having proper guidance, by having proper instruction, you'll be able to see that both instructions are the same. Otherwise, you would think, surrender to me, wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach the science of Krishna. How is that the same thing? But wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach the science of Krishna, that is surrender to Krishna. Lord Chaitanya has made it easy. And remember, as we said, Lord Chaitanya is not simply giving Krishna, he's giving love of Krishna, the most confidential gift. A gift that when Krishna's greatest devotees talk about it, they break out into ecstatic symptoms. I saw that in Atlanta, Georgia, Srila Prabhupada describing the mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu. You've heard, so many of you heard the lecture. The shortest lecture by Srila Prabhupada ended after 2.5 minutes. There were Gaur-Nitai deities at the Atlanta temple. Vaisheshika Prabhu was telling me how he spent sizable time there in Atlanta distributing books. So Prabhupada started his lecture and just started talking about the kindness of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. He's Krishna. He's giving away love of Krishna to people who don't even know Krishna. How do you love someone you don't know? How do you give away love of someone when no one knows that person? How do you do that? Then he just broke down, describing the mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. He ended his lecture by saying, just take shelter of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. His voice cracked. I was right in front of him. I saw the tears shoot from his eyes like shot by a syringe. He just ended the lecture after 2.5 minutes. got off the Vyasasana and went to his room and didn't speak about it. Didn't speak about what happened to him. So here you can understand the inner meaning of the universe, the purpose of the cosmos, what the greatest cosmologists, astrophysicists can't understand. Mahaprabhu is allowing you to see right before your eyes. He's distributing the taste of loving Krishna even to those who don't understand Krishna. I often explain, you've probably heard me say it before, why is there so confusion in India about Krishna? Everyone's heard of Krishna, very few understand Krishna. He's the Hindu forest love god. He cheated in the battle of Kurukshetra, right? He cheated Karna, right? And then Ras Leela. So many misunderstandings. Why is that? Do you ever wonder? In the land of Krishna, there's so much confusion. Why is that confusion there? Because they're not approaching Krishna through Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, there's so much perplexity. So when Srila Prabhupada came to the West, he noted that these people in America and Europe, they know nothing about Krishna. They have no preconceptions. Therefore, in that sense only, it was easier to get them to appreciate the truth about Krishna because they didn't have any prior misconceptions. Of course, you all are displaying the power of coming from Bharat and approaching Krishna through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But in this limited way of looking at the situation, Prabhupada was pointing out, these Westerners, in one sense, they're easy because they don't know anything. They don't have any prior misconceptions. They're simply attached to the taste of Kali Yuga sense gratification. But if you go talk to them, they're not going to tell you, but there are many devas. An example from the field of classical music. There's a famous Western classical music school in Vienna, Austria. I know one devotee from Mumbai who was actually a trained classical musician who went to school, classical music school in Vienna, but then he became a devotee, and now he works as a spiritual counselor at the Bhaktivedanta Hospital in Mumbai. So that school charges two rates of tuition. One rate is if you have taken piano lessons before, and the other rate is if you've never taken piano lessons. So if you've taken piano lessons before, they'll charge you more because they have to unlearn you of the inferior methods and conceptions. Our point is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy is so powerful that whether you think you know about Krishna or you know nothing about Krishna, you can properly approach Krishna. So that is the success that you're seeing here. Some of you came to the Western world, to the USA. You were not looking for Krishna. But by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya's devotees, you came upon the greatest fortune. So whether you understood something about Krishna, misunderstood something about Krishna, knew nothing at all, the ocean of Lord Chaitanya's mercy is covering the world. Now sometimes people think, It's an exaggeration to say that Lord Chaitanya's mercy is flooding the universe. We think that it's kind of like enthusiastic talk, like when people talk about their sports team, they get very enthusiastic. So similarly, we have our bhakti team, so we get very enthusiastic. Yeah, flooding the universe. But then with your tiny intelligence, you start thinking about it. Flooding the whole universe? How is that possible? Kaviraj Goswami explains in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that when Lord Chaitanya, 500 years ago, was present in India, residents from other planets would come disguised as human beings to meet him, to dance in his kirtans. You can read about Durga Devi herself. She tried to test Haridas Thakur, right? You know that, Leela? Haridas Thakur is one of the two reasons, external reasons, why Lord Chaitanya descended. The internal reason, of course, is to understand the position of Krishna's dearmost devotee, Srimati Radharani. The external reason was to answer the call of Advaita Acharya and the chanting of Haridas Thakur. Advaita Acharya called for the descent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by worshipping Shalagram Shila with Tulsi leaves and Ganga water. And Haridas Thakur chanted japa. Both were seeking the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Advaita Acharya was doing this at his home, and Haridas Thakur was doing this in his cave by the Ganga. He would chant day and night. Outside the cave there was like a courtyard with Tulsi plant. So he was chanting one beautiful night. The moon was shining on the waves of the Ganga. Such a beautiful, peaceful scene. So serene. And then, what happened? The most beautiful woman appeared in the doorway to the cave. She offered her obeisances to Tulsi Devi. She was so beautiful that her body was emanating a glow. Such a beautiful sight. The radiance from her body was coloring the whole scene. And then there was the fragrance from her body. More exquisite than the most costly perfume. So there was the sight of the radiance from her body. There was the fragrance. What else? The sound. The sound of the ankle bells. Watch out for those ankle bells. Those three things were prominent. The sight of her radiance, the sound of her ankle bells, the fragrance from her body. The situation didn't stop there. After all, this is Durga Devi, the material energy personified. She sat down at the entrance to the cave while Haridas Thakur is chanting. And she spoke the most beautiful words to agitate his male ego. Like men like to hear how great they are. You married ladies should always remember, men can never hear enough compliments. They're very easily wounded by the slashing, if there's any, from the wife. And they're so hungry to have their ego boosted. So that was Durga Devi's program. Sitting in the front of the cave. Oh, Jagat Bandhu. Oh, friend of the universe. I've come to get your mercy. I desire intimate association with you. And then she began, according to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, she began to exhibit postures that would bewilder even the mind of Lord Brahma. Meaning none of us would stand a chance to This is what she was doing in the presence of Haridas Thakur on a most beautiful night. Well, of course, Haridas Thakur told her the same thing he told the prostitute sent by Ramachandra Khan. Yes, yes, I'll fulfill all your requests. I have to finish my chanting. And as you know, he never finishes his chanting. So after 3 days, she asked him, what's going on? He explained, I've taken a vow. I have to finish my japa. And then she revealed herself. As we say in an English idiom, she threw her cards on the table to reveal what's really going on. She said, I am the illusory energy personified. I am Durga Devi, Maya Devi herself. I've come here to test you. You've passed the test. But I have another motivation. I want to float in the ocean of love of Krishna unleashed by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. My husband, Shiva, gave me the Hari Ram mantra. That's sufficient for liberation. But I want ecstatic love of Krishna. Therefore, please give me the Hare Krishna mantra. So Haridas Thakur formally initiated her into the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra just by requesting, you please chant Hare Krishna. That was her initiation yajna. She was so determined to float in that ocean of love of Krishna. She saw it was happening, but she's not part of it. So she begged for Haridas Thakur's mercy that she could be part of it. Then Kaviraj Goswami reveals that it's not only Durga Devi who wanted the darshan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Shiva, also, he would come to see Mahaprabhu. Lord Brahma would come to see him. The 4 Kumaras would come to see him. Prahlad Maharaj would come to see him. Lakshmi Devi herself would come to see him. Residents in general of other planets would also come disguised as human beings to have the audience of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in that way, although the activities of Lord Chaitanya seem to be just confined to India and certain sections of India only, the ramifications spread throughout the whole universe. So we have a chance to be a part of this universal cosmological mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's the rarest opportunity to actually distribute the applied spiritual technology which can extinguish the material flavor and replace it with the superior spiritual flavor. Again, this is the issue that the truly great intellects are dealing with. Krishna is speaking about this to Arjuna. Vidura is questioning Maitreya about it. You'll see in the 11th canto, Uddhava will be asking questions about that. Why is it that conditioned souls again and again engage in material activities, although they can see that simply misery results? Why? So this theme runs throughout the Bhagavatam. And obviously it's a theme that concerns us so much because a lot of our fear is based on this issue. We may talk about duties and obligations. If I take up bhakti, what about this duty, that obligation? What about my education? What about my job promotion? What about my family affairs? Those are legitimate concerns, but underneath it all is something that we may not immediately want to recognize. We are attached to certain flavors. And that attachment for certain flavors drives us onward, as Prabhupada explains in the beginning of Nectar of Devotion. Mm-hmm. So through the highest knowledge, we get the ability to grasp that prime dynamic, the flavor quest, the hunt for rasa. And this way we can actually make a solution to our problems and the world's problems. In this way, bhakti is far beyond just a mere religious belief, some collection of theological principles. No, it is dealing with the central dynamic of existence. And it's dealing with the meaning of the entire cosmos. So again, we can see that beyond the catastrophes of this world, which we feel sorry for, is the mercy of Krishna, especially appearing as the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So how can you say that the world is cruel when Lord Chaitanya's mercy is there? So we humbly beg for an opportunity to render humble service to the distribution of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And this place is famous throughout the ISKCON world as being a powerhouse for Mahaprabhu's mercy. So my advice to you is, if you get a chance to participate in what's going on here, you should consider that somehow or other you have achieved the special mercy of Lord Krishna. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Any comments from my dear godbrother Vaisheshika Prabhu? Questions? Comments?
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doubtlessly came and distributed this divine mercy which gives sense to the universe. But there are those who make it real for all of us in this world. It's required that we be able to relate to His mercy in ways that we can actually imbibe it. And so you, Maharaj, are one of the premier devotees, followers, disciples of Srila Prabhupada, who throughout this life have maintained the highest standard of bhakti as an example to everyone else. And through all the gifts that you've been naturally given in this lifetime, you're distributing it in ways that is continuing that wave of Lord Chaitanya's mercy to flood the world. So, from my heart personally, I feel greatly indebted to you for your example and your constant encouragement. And on behalf of all the devotees here at ISV, we express our deepest gratitude to you for keeping us in your orbit and visiting us on a regular basis. And we pray that you'll come as often as possible to give us that special insight so we remember the gift that we have and we pray to follow in your footsteps. Anyone who agrees with my sentiments, please say Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your kind words. Any questions? Yes.
You're talking about this atheistic scientist whose brain roamed around the cosmos.
Yes.
So,
You know about him?
kind of.
I didn't mention his name.
So, I was thinking, in my perspective, he was pretty dumb. So, I was thinking if he was like the smartest person in the modern day, and if there are other atheistic people, I was thinking how dumb they would be.
You're right. There's an expression by Chanak Pandit. Manina Bushita Sarpa Kimmasauna Bhayankara. He says, see that cobra? You know what a cobra is? That cobra has a jewel on its head. Therefore, that cobra is most dangerous, because when you see the cobra with a jewel on its head, you become fascinated by the jewel and forget how dangerous the cobra is. Therefore, the cobra with the jewel on the head is more dangerous than a cobra without. Can you figure that one out? In other words, what is the use of so much education and research if your ultimate conclusion is to be so dangerous to humanity that you make such statements? Now, as I was talking with Vaisheshika Prabhu earlier today, it's not that you'll always encounter persons who directly say such things as those quotations I read. Most persons are just bewildered. They don't know what to think, and these statements rattle around in the back of their consciousness, but they can't quite surrender to them completely. That I'm just matter that's come together by chance. So the statements kind of stymie them, it's like when someone hits you on the head with a piece of wood, you're kind of like a bit groggy, but they can't quite swallow it all. So this is why Srila Prabhupada explained that most people in Kali Yuga are innocent, but they're under the sway. They're affected by bad leaders, by statements like what I read. It makes them a bit weak and woozy. Like when you have a fever, you're kind of... So most people just don't know what to think, and they would like to be some kind of something spiritual, but they don't have that information. And more people are becoming very afraid of just religion, because they think religion means a collection of beliefs that you accept and then you fight with others about. You know what the fastest growing religion in the USA is? No religion. They're called the nuns. No, nothing. No religion. Not N-U-N-S, but N-O-N-E-S. The nuns. That's the fastest growing religion in the USA. Another name for them is the apatheists. You know the word apathy? Apathy means just no reaction. You know what apathy means? Yeah. What does it mean? Apathy means you couldn't care less. No interest, right. Just like if I asked you, now that the ice hockey season is over, what are the San Jose Sharks doing? How would you respond? Huh? Huh? You don't care, right? It means nothing to you. Now, so what? The ice hockey season ended. San Jose Sharks. Never think about it. So that's what apatheism is. In other words, we never think about atheism or theism. It just means nothing. So that is the big boom, apatheism. And the atheists complain. Atheists like this one I was quoting, they complain. Why aren't people going to the logical conclusion that there's no God? Why aren't they deliberating about this? But the average person just doesn't think at all. God, no God, I don't know. Just make the money, enjoy your senses. That's all. Of course, in India, things would be stated much more polished. Take care of your family, pay off your debts, own some properties, make sure you get your green card. The bottom line is the same. We're not thinking right now of what is the ultimate purpose of life, what is God, what is the soul. So either you do that in a very cultured, polished way, full of social obligations that you acknowledge, or you do it in a very uncivilized, uncultured way, as goes on in the Western world. Yes.
I like the one point where you said that experience is the best learning because a fool will learn no other way.
Ah, you remember that?
Yes, and I was remembering one saying in Hindi where my dad always tells me that when I don't listen, "Laaton ke bhoot baaton se nahi mante."
Translation.
Translation is that those who deserve to be kicked don't listen to words.
You don't hear that too often, do you?
I wish.
Yes? You have a question? Oh.
Thank you, Mirage, for a very enlightening talk. One thing I really liked is when you said that in this material world we do pretty much we cannot learn anything. Knee science doesn't teach anything at all. But I have a question regarding that. So when you spoke about Daksha Prajapati wanting his sons to go through this and then learn, and then the other point you quoted was where Krishna said Glanir Bhavati, like you do regulated. So which one? So if we don't learn anything from this, so why is Krishna talking about regulation? Like we could probably ask everyone to just leave and probably move to the forest or things like that. So how do we take that?
Krishna in Bhagavad Gita is telling Arjuna, Mama Nushma Yujyam Cha, do your duty for me, fight and think of me. He doesn't tell Arjuna, just walk away and go to sleep. He's telling him, you do your occupational dharma as a Kshatriya, but you're acting under my direction. I'm the enjoyer of the results of your activities. So nowhere in Bhagavad Gita does Krishna say you become idle and irresponsible. Right?
Yes.
That's why Krishna is speaking Bhagavad Gita not to a brahmachari, not to a sadhu, but he's speaking to a householder and a military man. Just so you'll have no excuse. This is how merciful Krishna is. He's speaking to a family man. That is why Bhagavad Gita is so essential for all times and all places.
Yes. Yeah, actually, that was the question. Like, if we have no learning to come out of material world, then why regulation? Why this dual thing? where Krishna is saying, you be in the world and not be of the world. Might as well just move forward and become completely on the spiritual side. And, yeah, leave everything.
You see, by following a life of piety, it makes you more sane, so that when you do meet a devotee, you're not so bewildered and you're more likely to listen. But still, the association with a devotee is required if you want bhakti. If you're at least in the mode of goodness, which is very rare these days, sattva guna, you should be peaceful enough to clearly hear about Krishna. But what you're seeing in the world today is actually that there's practically very little mode of goodness. The mode of passion, the mode of ignorance makes you very turbulent. And makes it difficult for persons to receive the seed of devotional service, even though that seed is transcendental to the modes of material nature. So as the world's becoming more affected by passion and ignorance, you see, it's more difficult for people to hear. At the same time, our devotees are becoming more expert as physicians in terms of dealing with the material disease. So on the one hand, people are becoming more bewildered. On the other hand, our devotees are becoming more expert. It's a very interesting situation. Just like this congregation here is symptomatic of the expertise of devotees. How many of you, before coming here to this congregation, ever thought that you would become prime distributors of Lord Chaitanya's mercy? You didn't think that. So yes, the world is becoming more turbulent. People are becoming more bewildered. Yet the devotees are becoming more expert. So these are very interesting times. There's an old Chinese proverb, which is actually a curse, but most people think it's a blessing. In China, they simply say, "May you live in interesting times." That's a very indirect culture way of saying, "May you suffer." So you are living in very interesting times and very interesting dynamics. You have world leaders boasting about how their destructive arsenal and weapons are bigger than the other person's. We're not just picking out one leader in particular. They're saying like that all over the world. I've got a weapon that will destroy you. It's invincible. My nuclear button is bigger than yours. There's actually, since so many of you are engineers, I'll tell you, there's actually no such thing as a nuclear button. Did you know that? It's just like a folk tale that politicians repeat. What there is something called a football that wherever the president of the USA goes, some military aide is following him with an attaché case with the nuclear football inside, which is a device shaped like a football, which can send messages for launching the nuclear arsenal. Seems to be a foolproof system, right? So many precautions. Wherever the president of the USA goes, someone's following him with this nuclear football device, which contains the codes for launching a nuclear attack. But did you know that in order to access that nuclear football, there's something called the biscuit, which is like a very small device, sort of like a couple of credit cards, which the president of the USA carries around, which confirms his identity. So in order to get into the nuclear football, you first have to have the biscuit to show the football what your identity is. So did you know, and this is a fact, revealed by the head of the Joint Chief of Staff, the topmost military official in the USA. He revealed that for 4 months, during the time of one US president, I won't mention his name, during his time, he lost the biscuit for 4 months. So all this technology, all this sophistication, and what does he use? So the military chief admitted, this is actually stupendous in ramifications. For 4 months, the president didn't know that he had misplaced the biscuit, which would allow him to get into the nuclear football in case of having to respond to a nuclear attack. There's always the human factor. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the wonderful class. You were telling about how material happiness is very illusory, and at the same.
What do you think?
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj. So my question was, on one side we're saying that material happiness is illusory, and on the other side we talk about the bhakti rasa. But since we don't have any experience, or because we haven't tasted the bhakti rasa, so how do we keep ourselves inspired to keep going on the path?
This is why the association of enthusiastic devotees is so important. That association keeps you focused on the bhakti rasa, and in fact, the taste of the rasa becomes sweeter in the association of devotees. This is something revealed by Lord Kapila Dev in the third canto of Bhagavatam. Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti hrikana rasayana kata. The talks about Krishna become even more powerful and sweeter when spoken in the association of devotees. This is why we need that association. And without the association of devotees, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur points out that without the association of devotees, you gradually lose the ability to discriminate between material and spiritual affairs. It all becomes cloudy. So by maintaining the association of devotees, you can be sharp. You're getting that flavor, which is sweeter and more powerful, and your vision remains clear. So these are the benefits of devotee association. Sometimes you have to drive a bit of a distance to get devotee association. Sometimes you have to fit it into your crowded schedule, but never forget these prime advantages, these essential advantages. Yes?
Thank you so much, Mirage, for such a wonderful class. I have 2 questions. First one is that when is your next book coming out?
When is my next book coming out? Well, the latest one, published by the BBT, surprised me. It's sold 120,000 copies. Due to the mercy of the devotees. I'm thinking of the next one, praying to Krishna what approach would be the best service. One should write for one's own purification, whether it's published or not, write for one's own purification. And I want to make sure that as much as possible, what I would try to present is the will of the super soul, and would actually touch people's heads and hearts. So I'm going over various possibilities in my head and praying to Krishna about it.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. We look forward to that. And my question is that we read that Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu, so Shiva is the biggest devotee of Lord Krishna. So why did he give the Rama mantra to his to his wife and not? Is he less merciful? I mean, like we go out on the streets and we give the Hare Krishna mantra to everybody.
Yes, by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you can exceed what Lord Shiva did for his wife Durga Devi. But Lord Shiva also came to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Every intelligent person wants to drown in the ocean of love of Krishna set forth by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So why not us? So you can relieve the confusion in India about Krishna. You can relieve the ignorance in the whole world about Krishna just by distributing the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Either people don't know or they have misconceptions. I remember I was in South America, Ecuador. Anyone know where Ecuador is? It's in the middle of nowhere. So, but as you know, persons from BART go everywhere in the world where there might be business or IT possibilities. So, even in Ecuador, I was giving a lecture, and some persons from BART happened to come to the lecture. Mainly the room was full of local persons from Ecuador. So obviously I was focusing on the local persons. The lecture, I was speaking in English, was translated into Spanish. But these visitors, they wanted to ask a question. And I could sense, I don't know if this is going to work out, because if they're going to present some misconceptions, and here I am speaking to a very open audience that has no preconceptions about Krishna, and these other persons are going to ask questions that are based on so many misconceptions. I don't know if I have the time to focus on what they're going to say. As it turned out, they had some import-export business in Ecuador. So one has to be open to everyone who's present at a program. So they raised their hand and they asked me their question. It didn't turn out to be a question. They said, Swamiji, did you know that our guru is God? So I had to think, do I want to get into this now in front of such a audience that is naive and has no preconceptions? But they kept insisting, Swamiji, Swamiji, we're here to tell you, our guru is God. So I thought, I don't want to waste time in this arena. So finally I convinced him, why don't you come see me privately, we can discuss. So I thought that would be the end of that. But no. Next day they there was a knock on my door where I was staying, and in they came. Dandavat Pranam Swamiji. We want to explain again that our guru is God. So I looked at them and said, all right, if your guru is God, then I am the Queen of England. So they kind of looked at me perplexed. And one of them actually said with a straight face, Swamiji, you're not the Queen of England. And I replied by saying, and guess what? Your guru is not God. So they looked at me and, and then they left. So I was just amazed. Here I am in Ecuador in the middle of nowhere. And still you have to deal with this kind of stuff. Fortunately, by your efforts here, you are doing so much to counteract that kind of nescience and avidya. And never forget how your efforts here are affecting the whole world. You should think, how did you luck upon this situation? What great fortune do you have that allows you to participate in this situation? That is Krishna's mercy upon you. So you should always remember that. Yes. Is that Vrindavanath way in the back? My old friend.
Good to see you, Mirage. I'll always cherish the times when you would bring me to visit my mother, who was traveling on Sankirtan on the East Coast. And
yes, I always remember that also.
Yeah. And for the time I got to spend with you in Asia. My question, I guess, is Sangha. You've repeatedly mentioned Sangha, the importance of Sangha. And for me personally, Sangha is not so readily available or closely available. And I remember you telling stories of your time in Eastern Europe, and wondered if you took shelter of certain activities or things during times when Sangha is not so available.
In Eastern Europe, my main preoccupation was smuggling Prabhupada's books into communist countries. So in the eyes of the local governments, I was a criminal, distributing illegal literature. So I always focused on that mission. When we first started these activities, if we could just bring into a country 5 Ishopanishads, we were rejoicing. We would wrap the Ishopanishads in aluminum foil and stick them on somewhere in the engine. And if we were successful in getting them across the border into these countries, we thought, oh, Lord Chaitanya's mercy. It seems so insignificant to you now. Here, ISV is famous for distributing, 5 Ishopanishads in 1 second, every second. But there, the circumstances were so difficult that if we could just get into the country by wrapping in aluminum foil 5 Ishopanishads, or else we would stick them inside a sack of flour or something, just 5 books. Oh, what a great triumph, Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So you have to see it all in context. And the situation was so severe that one devotee, very few devotees were doing this service because it was so severe. One of them said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, it's so intense, it's so difficult. No one wants, you can't find a devotee to go with you. But Prabhupada was so insistent about wanting the service done, he said, you go alone. He wasn't taking no for an answer. There's a side of Srila Prabhupada that is often forgotten. So we started off just getting 5 books into a country like the former Czechoslovakia, East Germany, Poland. But then, just as your activities began in a small way here and have mushroomed into a global force, similarly, just by sticking to it in the face of impossible odds, after 8 years of struggle, we figured out how to smuggle truckloads, like 15,000 Bhagavad Gitas into a communist country. By bribing, by this, by that. So we took shelter of the mission of Srila Prabhupada, and we were dedicated to his books. We were convinced by getting Prabhupada's books into these countries, the whole situation would change. Because that's what Prabhupada told us. He says, if my books are distributed in these countries, communism is finished. we couldn't see how that could be true, but we just accepted his words as our life force. But intellectually, we couldn't understand it. So you asked how we got association in those times. It's through the mission. That is association. We did the best we could. Practically no devotees wanted to go into such a situation. But Srila Prabhupada didn't take no for an answer. We would go to Mayapur twice a year. I remember just going to Mayapur. You know where the long building is in Mayapur? I would just walk on the roof of the long building back and forth, just chanting Hare Krishna all day, trying to recover from such intense pressure. The pressure was not simply that you would be caught. That was pressure enough. But the worst pressure was that the local devotees would become endangered if you were caught. Most likely, because you were from the West, if you were caught, they would sell you back to the West for hard currency. Yeah. $10,000, $20,000. They call it bail. They arrest you and then say, you want to leave the country until your court date? $20,000. Put into this Swiss bank account. And in other words, don't come back. Don't come back for your court date. So they would, for a Westerner, they would sell you back to the West. But for a local, oh my goodness, no mercy at all. So the paranoia, the fear was real. That not only could you be endangered, but worse, the devotees, the local devotees who are risking their life as part of the underground cells for distributing Prabhupada's books, they would be captured and their life would be totally devastated. I remember when the first truckload of Bhagavad Gita as it is came straight from the printer in Germany through East Germany into communist Poland. We had greased all the rails. We had gotten all kinds of false papers. The truck went straight through. It was inconceivable how that would happen. Right to a house where devotees were staying. All the devotees eagerly, quickly unloaded the trailer truck. 15,000 Bhagavad Gitas. It was the middle of the winter. The temperature was like 20 below zero. They took those books and went out on Sankirtan with the tears streaming from down their cheeks, and the tears were frozen to their cheeks. They were so happy. So that's what I remember. Anything else? Oh, you asked so many questions. I'm glad you're so inquisitive. Who taught you how to be so inquisitive? Your mother. Oh. It's good to have a mother like that. Anything else? How are we doing for time? Someone please give me an instruction. All right. So I thank you for your kind attention. Hare Krishna.